Hello, Women Talk Ladies in Langdon. My name is Donna Korchinski, and I presume that I've been introduced. I am thrilled to be here with you on video, but I am sorry I cannot be with you in person. I love to see people in person. I love to speak to them in person, but that is not meant to be today. And I would also like to thank Heidi and Alicia for inviting me to speak to your group. This is a very exciting time. And, I'm going to tell my story about how we need to change in our lives. And change for me became difficult, and I was reluctant to change. The story starts back when I was about 12 years old. You can imagine this. It's a small town in Saskatchewan. Lots of snow. It's winter time. I was about 12 years old. And every morning, especially in the winter that I remember, I would get up very early, long before it was time to go to school, and dress up in layers upon layers upon layers and heavy boots. And then I'd put my brother's heavy parka on. And I would trudge down to the railway station to pick up the newspapers that came on the train. They were the Winnipeg Free Press and the Regina Leader Post. And I was the paper carrier. And that was my introduction to journalism. It was in my blood. It was in my blood. And then when I got home, and I would have breakfast, and we'd sit down to eat, and it was 8 o'clock, and the national news came on the radio. And it was like a church service in our house. We had to be quiet. We had to listen to the news. Every morning. The national news. And it was very officious. And that got me hooked on journalism. And then I got hooked on media. I remember going to the fair. There was a fair in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. It was about maybe an hour away. And every year we'd go to the fair, and they had a commercial area, trade show area. And there in the middle was the radio station broadcasting live, CJGX. I would stand there at the window of that radio station at the fair, and I would peer in and look at them and say, wow, they're talking to that microphone, and it's going all over the world. I'm sure it was. Anyway, that fascinated me. And that got me hooked on media, and then I was hooked on journalism. Well, it took me a while to get to be a journalist. I went to school, I went to university, got a degree, and then I was kind of scared about getting into journalism. I didn't know how to do it, but I just did it. So fast forward, I started freelancing. Well, what I did, I started working in various media. My first job actually was at CKOS, writing television commercials. And then I realized, oh my gosh, you're writing about tractors and bull sales and all kinds of interesting things. Auction sales, that was big. And then I worked at CKOS television in Yorkton, and I was writing more commercials about bull sales and auctions. Boy, I could tell you a lot about tractors. But I thought, that's not exactly for me. But I did learn about media. I did learn about cameras. I did learn about writing. I did learn about how to put a script together. Anyway, fast forward, I started freelancing. And when I freelanced, I found myself in a dream job. I got a job at CBC Edmonton as a reporter, as a television reporter. That was exciting. And I started to learn about myself. I learned that I was absolutely fascinated with information. I was also fascinated with the truth, believe it or not. Now, the truth sometimes in media, when you're in journalism, is hard to come by. But what I learned also, I got people to trust me. And when you can get people to trust me, they tell you things. They give you documents. They give you information that it is not publicly available. And I started to put stories together doing that. It's called investigative reporting. Now, there was no internet in those days, and everything was done on film. But I was fascinated, so I started doing stuff like that. And I got amazing stories. And it was hard work. It was very hard work. And in those days, it was not easy for women. But I just was focused and determined I was going to do this. And I was going to do it well. Anyway, I did that for almost 10 years, and then I got attracted to Calgary, and I met a man, and so I moved to Calgary. And instead of doing staff work here at CBC, I freelanced. And that was exciting because I was going out of my comfort zone. I was freelancing, and what I was doing is investigative reporting, and I ended up doing assignments for the Fifth Estate. And that was fascinating, and it really pushed me to the limit. And then I started getting calls from ABC News in New York, and that was fascinating, and an entirely different milieu. And during that time when I was in Calgary, a friend came to my door one day, and we were talking. She said, "Donna, you're not going to be a journalist forever." I said, "Yes, I am. I'm a journalist right through and through. It's in my cells, it's in my body, it's in my matter." "No, you're not. You're an intuitive." An intuitive? I didn't even know how to spell it. And she said, "Yes, you are." Now, she was a very wise lady. And then I started thinking about situations I had been in as a reporter. I could not ever tolerate anybody who would lie to me. And I could always tell. And I used to get called on the mat for that, because if somebody lied to me, I was like an attack dog. I was just going like that. And they said, and I would get called up, and my boss would say, "Donna, you were really mean." I said, "They were lying to me." So I would always know. And then my brother one day phoned me up, and he said, "Donna, there's a course for you. You need to take this course." And what it was a course on how to develop my intuition. And my intuition, I thought, and it was 2 weekends. The end of the first weekend, I flew. I thought, oh my goodness, that is exciting. But I'm still a journalist. I was really very hard fast. But I decided at that time that I needed to change. But then I started realizing when I took that course how I applied my intuition in my journalism. I would know when people were lying, but things would happen to me. I remember one time we would be sent on, what would it be? Especially the women would get the fluff stories. The guys would get the hard, tough, real news stories, and the ladies would get fluff stories. So one day I was sent on an assignment to go and find and do a story on ski hill safety. Now, I don't know if any of you know Edmonton, but this hill was Connors Hill. It's right in the middle of Edmonton. It's right across the river from the McDonald Hotel. And it's basically a bunny hill. And so what I did, I took it seriously, and I took everything seriously. I went to the library and I read up on ski hill safety, and I learned that, you can't have a scarf like this. If you're going downhill, you can't have a scarf. Or if you have long hair, you have to tie it up and put it under your toque. But things like that. And then I did an interview with the head of the ski hill. He was the pro there, and he was telling me all these things, and I thought, that's all well and good. And then in television or in film, what you do the interview and you lay it in, and what's called B-roll. It's basically pictures that run over somebody talking. And we were getting our B-roll, and the cameraman started filming at the bottom of the hill, and they're mostly young kids. They were going up the hill. It was a tea bar, and they were going up the hill, and all of a sudden, he was filming, and there was this child coming up the hill, hanging by her scarf. Now, I had learned in my research that if you are not careful, people have actually, children especially, have broken their necks doing this. And I said, oh my goodness. Anyway, the cameraman finished. He panned right up. And at the end, the child was okay. But it was really hairy. And I called into the newsroom, and I said, do you know what happened? We were filming, and this child came up the tow rope hanging on by her scarf. And they said, oh yeah, that always happens to Donna. Those things happen. It's coincidental. And I thought, why is that? And then I realized there is another energy going on. There's another energy that we don't even know. And it was that particular situation. I was so relieved that that child was okay, but it stuck in my mind that why is that happening? And why is my newsroom saying, oh, those things happen to Donna all the time? Huh? And I didn't even realize it. I didn't realize it. But then I realized more and more I was using my intuition. And especially when I look back on my reporting, and I thought, yeah. I remember one time, it was kind of funny. I was covering a protest in front of it was a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven. And there were a bunch of protesters protesting the fact that this convenience store was selling porn magazine. I started interviewing them, and I realized, this guy's not real. And I found out that actually they were getting paid by somebody. They were, paid protesters. And that enraged me. So I attacked them. I was not nice. I'm usually a very nice person, but I was not nice to them. And this not nice interview went on the air. And my producer got complaints, and I got called in. Donna, why were you like that to that person? I said, because they were lying to me. Anyway, those are the things that happened to me, and then I realized I was using my intuition. And you know what, ladies? You use your intuition all the time as well. You just think back about times. You have a gut feeling. That's what I was doing. And then we'll fast forward to Calgary, and we came here, and I said to my friend who said, I'm not going to be doing this, no, Donna. And then I started taking these courses. And I thought, oh, this is really something. I started doing intuitive writing. I could pick up somebody, a stranger in a room, and tap into them. And if they asked me a question, I can write 20 pages on them. And they'd be right, and they would be correct. So I thought, well, I might be able to do this. So once I started taking more courses, and I had to take quite a few, and then I started doing healing work. But I was still, that nagging feeling, I was still a journalist. As an aside, I remember my husband and I would be driving down the street, I'd hear a siren. I said, let's go find out who that is. Let's go. Who is that? And that I've kind of gotten over that, but I still get a twinge when I hear a siren because it could be a story. You never know. Anyway, but I started taking these courses, and I started doing healings, and people started saying, I feel better, Donna, when you do this. When you do this healing. I remember one lady came to me, and she had it was a lesion, I guess, on her shoulder, and. But she had been through a tough time. Her mother had just recently died of MS, and her father died of colon cancer. And she said, oh my God, if I got cancer on my shoulder, if I got skin cancer. She went to her doctor. The doctor tried different creams and tried different potions and antibiotics. Nothing worked. So the doctor made an appointment with a specialist, and that was serious. So she came to me, and I just started clearing her with my hands. clearing, clearing, clearing. Did this twice, 2 sessions. And then I get a text one day. She says, "You will not believe this, Donna. That lesion fell off. It fell off, and there's no scar on my shoulder." And I thought, holy cow. So the specialist called because she already had this appointment and said, "Are you coming in for your appointment?" And she says, "No, I'm not coming in. The lesion's gone." And the lesion is gone? Are you sure? Yes, it's gone. Nobody else could cure it. So things like that started to happen to me. I remember one lady was brought in by a therapist, like a doctor therapist, and she says, "My client is psychotic." Well, I couldn't even spell psychotic. And I just said, "I'm just going to do what comes to me intuitively." But the client sat down and she started telling me what a sordid life she was living, how unhappy she was, and on and on and on. And it was very sad. And I felt very badly for her. Then I said, "I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, so why don't we go and I'll sit down on this chair and let's do some healing." So we did. And all of a sudden, she perks up and she says, "Oh, I feel great. I feel great." I thought, I couldn't even explain what was happening, but I knew it was something profound. And I knew that what I had in my hands, there was something going on there. The power was not mine. It was from somewhere else. And I started to get convinced that maybe I should be doing this. And during that time, journalism became harder and harder. And as you know, everybody's cutting back. And the kind of journalism I did, it took a long time. In other words, I wasn't getting paid enough. And it was harder for me to convince assignment editors that my story was really a good one. So I thought, maybe I'm being forced into changing reluctantly. I'm still a journalist at heart, but I started realizing that it's not just journalism. I'm finding out information about the body, about people, about humans. And that's when it hit me. I thought, okay, I can change. That was so hard for me to do, though, because my passion for journalism was so strong. And now my passion for healing is just as strong. And when I see people who come to me and their lives are just falling apart. I remember one lady came to me and she said, "Donna, my friend told me about you, but I want to know, what did you do to my friend?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, before she started seeing you, every second day she would say, 'I'm leaving my husband. I'm leaving my husband.' And then she started seeing you and she changed. And she doesn't say that anymore." And it was interesting because what it told me is that it changed her inside. And she said, I want that same treatment. I want that. I want what you have to give." But then I explain to them, it's not really me, it's their higher self. I get the information downloaded from above. I call it God. But it could be whoever you believe in. It's your higher self, your God, your angels, whomever. I am just the conduit. But it's important. And I began to honor that. I began to honor the fact that we need to respect our gifts and follow our hearts. And this life change was phenomenal for me because, I was worried. What are my former colleagues going to think of me? They'll think I'm weird. Well, I think they do anyway. But, it doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter because there's so much satisfaction. And when I see people getting better, feeling better, laughing, and, when they come, they're sad, and I can see their eyes start to sparkle, that tells me it's a validation. Now, you can do the same thing if you're in a situation where you need to change. Well, do it. And you could fail. but to heck with that. Because really fail isn't the word. It's just learning. It's just more learning. And if you can pick yourself up and keep on going, good for you. And now I just want to say something about the coronavirus. I don't want you to be afraid of it. I want you to work at keeping your immune systems strong. Get lots of sleep. Eat properly. Drink lots of water. And be positive about everything. Be positive about life. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. And, if you try to get those wipes, forget it. I've been to drugstores and all kinds of stores looking for wipes. You know what? The old bleach is just as good. But the main thing is to be positive. And I hope that you can withstand everything, and you'll be great. You'll be great. And all the best to Women Talk in Langdon. You women are beautiful. I haven't met you, but I love you already. And thank you for allowing me to speak to you.